A shopper walks through a car dealership in southern China and drives home the same afternoon in a brand new electric vehicle that costs less than a decent used sedan anywhere else in the world. That is real. It exists. It's already one of the best-selling vehicles in the world's largest car market. And it's just the entry point into a genuine category of Chinese micro EVs now aggressively, undercutting what a car is even supposed to cost. Before this list is over, you're going to see a 4-door city car smaller than most parking spaces, a 5-star safety-rated hatchback cheaper than most people's annual car insurance bill, and a highway-capable compact that costs less than a used Honda Civic. Every price and spec in this video comes from verified manufacturer listings and independent automotive journalism, because comparing prices across countries and currencies takes real care. So if that effort is useful to you, hitting like and subscribe genuinely helps. By the time we reach the top of this list, you'll understand exactly why the average new car price in China has fallen to a fraction of what it costs almost anywhere else on Earth. Let's start with the current title holder for cheapest EV in the entire country. Number 4 on our list is the Chery QQ Ice Cream Pro. And it earns its spot here specifically because, as of this year, it holds the actual title of the cheapest production electric vehicle sold anywhere in China. Here's the number that makes this genuinely remarkable, rather than just another budget car claim. The QQ Ice Cream Pro starts at approximately $7,700. A price point independent automotive research specifically confirms no other major auto market anywhere in the world currently offers a production EV below, with the most affordable EVs sold in the US, EU, and Japan, all starting above $20,000. Think about what that gap actually represents. An American, European, or Japanese buyer looking for the cheapest possible new electric vehicle in their own domestic market would still be paying close to 3 times what a Chinese buyer pays for a comparable entry-level EV, a genuinely staggering difference for what is, at its core, the same basic category of vehicle serving the same basic urban commuting purpose. Here's what makes a car this cheap actually viable as a real product, rather than a stripped-down novelty. Chery built the QQ Ice Cream Pro specifically around China's dense urban commuting market, prioritizing a tight turning radius, easy parking, and low running costs over highway range or performance, the exact trade-off that makes sense for a car that's realistically never leaving city limits. But being the single cheapest EV on the market is a fairly narrow claim to fame. The next entry on this list didn't just chase the lowest price, it fundamentally redefined what an entire category of vehicle could look like. Number 3 is the Wuling Bingo Mini EV, and it earns this position because more than any other vehicle on this list, it's the car that actually created this entire category in the first place. Here's the backstory. Built by SAIC GM Wuling, a joint venture between 2 Chinese state-backed automakers and American giant General Motors. The original Bingo Mini EV launched years ago and went on to consistently outsell every other electric vehicle in China, including Tesla, almost every single month during its early run, powered specifically by smart supply chain management honed through Wuling's decades of experience building cheap, no-frills microvans for the Chinese market. Here's what the newest 2026 version of this car actually delivers. Wuling now sells 4 separate trim levels, priced between approximately $6,200 and $7,600 before any government subsidies, with the top-tier version reportedly pushing past 190 miles of range on a single charge, according to Digital Trends' own coverage of the redesigned model. Here's the number that shows just how genuinely tiny this car actually is in physical terms. It measures just over 10 feet long, with a turning radius of only 14.8 feet, small enough that automotive reporters covering the Detroit Auto Show specifically noted you could park 2 of the previous generation mini EVs inside the same physical space needed for a single Ford F-150, America's top-selling vehicle. Think about what that comparison actually means for anyone living somewhere parking is genuinely scarce. A vehicle this size doesn't just cost less to buy, it solves an entirely separate problem, fitting into parking spaces in narrow city streets that would be completely unusable for a normal-sized car. Here's the redesign detail that shows Wuling isn't simply coasting on the original model's reputation. The 2026 version features what the company calls a sweet square design update, with rounded corners, circular LED headlights, and a new 8-layer paint process specifically added to give the tiny car a noticeably higher quality look than its budget price tag would normally suggest. But a car built purely to be small, cheap, and city-friendly still leaves a genuine gap for buyers who occasionally need real safety credentials and slightly more capability. The next entry on this list was built specifically to fill exactly that gap. Number 2 is the BYD Seagull, and it earns this spot because it manages something the first 2 entries on this list genuinely don't. Real, independently verified safety credentials, without giving up much of the price advantage that defines this entire category. Here's the number that anchors this entry. The Seagull starts at roughly $9,700 to $10,150, depending on a configuration, positioning it only slightly above the cheapest cars on this list, while adding something genuinely significant in return. Here's exactly what that small price increase actually buys. Independent Automotive research specifically flagged the Seagull as the strongest overall value in its price tier because of its combination of real driving range, a 5-star safety rating, and BYD's own lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry, the same inherently safer, longer-lasting battery technology used across BYD's broader lineup, known for its strong resistance to overheating compared to some other lithium chemistries. Think about what a genuine 5-star safety rating actually means sitting inside this specific price category. The cheapest vehicles in any market are often the ones buyers most reasonably worry might be cutting corners on structural safety, and a car in this exact price range independently. Earning top safety marks directly undercuts that assumption. Proving genuinely responsible, engineering doesn't have to disappear the moment the price tag drops this low. Here's why BYD specifically was positioned to pull this off. As China's largest EV manufacturer by sales volume, BYD controls enormous vertically integrated battery and component manufacturing capacity, letting the company build genuine safety and battery quality into an entry-level model in a way that's considerably harder for smaller manufacturers without that same in-house supply chain to match at an identical price point. But even with real safety credentials, the Seagull, like the two entries before it, remains fundamentally a city-first car. The final entry on this list is the one actually built to leave the city behind entirely. Number 1 is the Wuling Bingo Pro, and it takes the top spot on this list because it's the vehicle here that most directly threatens to make an ordinary car feel genuinely unnecessary, rather than simply cheaper. Here's what separates this car from every other entry covered so far. While the rest of this list is explicitly built around tight city driving and short urban commutes, the retro-styled Bingo Pro was specifically designed for real highway travel, starting at just over $8,000 while delivering a battery range of 250 miles based on China's own CLTC testing standard. Think about what that range number actually represents once you place it alongside everything else on this list. 250 miles of range is genuinely comparable to plenty of mainstream, full-sized gasoline vehicles sold in Western markets, meaning this isn't a compromise vehicle limited purely to grocery runs and short errands. It's a car capable of a genuine highway road trip at a price still meaningfully below 8 of every 10 new cars sold in the United States. Here's the number that shows exactly how disruptive this entire pricing tier has become at the broader national level, not just for this one specific model. At the Beijing Auto Show this year, Reuters specifically documented more than 200 separate battery-powered vehicle models, including hybrids, currently on sale in China for less than the equivalent of $25,000, while the average new car sold in the United States that same month carried a list price of $51,456, according to Kelley Blue Book. Read that again. At the exact same moment, the average American car buyer's typical purchase price could functionally buy 5 of China's best-selling budget EVs outright, with real money left over. Here's what makes the Bingo Pro specifically the right vehicle to close this list on. Unlike the pure city runabouts covered earlier, this is a car genuinely capable of replacing a normal, household's only vehicle entirely, not simply supplementing one at a price that makes the entire concept of a $50,000 family car feel like an increasingly optional rather than necessary purchase. Before wrapping up this list, it's worth pulling back and being honest about the current state of this entire vehicle category, because the real 2026 sales data complicates the simple, purely triumphant version of this story. According to industry reporting on China's own domestic auto market, sales of microelectric vehicles, specifically the lowest priced category these cars belong to, actually plummeted 55% in the first half of this year compared to the year before. Here's the specific policy shift driving that decline. China's electric vehicle purchase tax shifted this year from a full exemption to a 50% levy, directly raising the cost of exactly these lowest priced small cars by several thousand yuan, while a separate trade-in subsidy program shifted from a fixed cash amount to a percentage of the vehicle's price, meaning the smallest, cheapest cars on this entire list now receive proportionally smaller government support than they did previously. Here's a second honest data point worth including directly. Research from the market intelligence firm ID TechX specifically found that micro-EVs as a global category captured just $11 billion of the overall $800 billion global EV market last year, with worldwide sales expected to stay roughly flat at 1.4 million units through this year, even as rising incomes inside China itself are starting to pull some buyers toward larger, more capable vehicles instead. Think about what that combination of data actually means for the honest state of this category right now. These vehicles genuinely do exist, genuinely are astonishingly cheap by any global comparison, and genuinely are reshaping what a car can cost inside China specifically. But the underlying policy support that helped build this entire category in the first place is now actively being scaled back, meaning this isn't necessarily a straight line toward these vehicles taking over the world. It's a genuinely more complicated, still unfolding market story. So here's the full picture, start to finish. The Chery QQ Ice Cream Pro currently holds the title of China's single cheapest production EV at roughly $7,700, a price point no other major global auto market comes anywhere close to matching. The Wuling Guang Mini EV, the vehicle that essentially created this entire category, now comes in 4 trims starting under $7,000, small enough that 2 could fit inside the parking footprint of a single Ford F-150. The BYD Seagull adds genuine 5-star independently verified safety credentials and BYD's own proven battery, chemistry for only a modest price increase over the cheapest cars on this list. And the Wuling Bingo Pro proves this entire price category doesn't have to mean sacrificing real highway capability, delivering 250 miles of range at a price still dramatically below the average American car purchase. What you're actually watching across this entire list is the same shift that happened to personal computers decades ago when an entire industry insisted a genuinely capable machine had to be expensive, until manufacturers proved a stripped-down, purpose-built version could do 90% of what most people actually needed at a small fraction of the cost. China hasn't made the traditional car completely obsolete, and this year's sharp sales decline in exactly this category proves that transition is still genuinely uncertain rather than inevitable. But these vehicles have already proven something that would have sounded impossible in almost any other major car market on Earth. A genuinely real, safety-rated, highway-capable car can cost less than most people's annual car insurance bill somewhere else in the world. If breakdowns like this, the real prices and the real numbers behind China's biggest consumer disruptions, are useful to you, hit like and subscribe, because there's more of this coming, including a closer look at whether any of these specific budget EVs ever managed to legally reach American or European showrooms despite current tariff barriers. So here's the honest question for the comments. Would you actually drive one of these tiny, ultra-cheap EVs as your only car? Or does the small size and stripped-down feature set make you think you'd still want something bigger, even at 3 or 4 times the price? I read every single one.